Welcome to this Rainbow Map reflection session with me, Andrew Thomas, and an interested friend, Trevor, who's kindly agreed to host a reflection session with me on Zoom in my role as a psychotherapist who has integrated the Rainbow Map into my work. So no surprise there. Sorry, but I better get the legal stuff out of the way first. I've made the tools and concepts I've developed available through the Trigger Orientated Therapy website and companion YouTube channel without any paywall, and accept no liability for how you choose to use them in your work or directly in your life. There is also a terms and conditions statement at the top of the launch page for this module on the Trigger Orientated Therapy website. So, if you're already using the Rainbow Map, then this and other reflection sessions will hopefully generate new insights and ideas for you. If you're new to the Rainbow Map, then these sessions are intended to help you further your understanding of this tool and if and how it might be of use to you and your clients. You're also very welcome if you're a member of the public interested in knowing more about the human system and the world of psychotherapy and counselling. For the psychotherapists and counsellors sharing the experience with us, my hope is that the session is both enjoyable and an opportunity to take a little time out to reflect on the role the Rainbow Map plays in the work they do, and perhaps even open up new thoughts and ideas that might be useful afterwards. I'd like to emphasise that all who participate in these sessions generalise the reflections and don't talk about individual clients to protect confidentiality unless they've received permission. If we don't cover questions or reflect on areas that interest you, or you just want to dig deeper, then I'm happy to participate in a 1-hour Zoom-based question answer reflection session free of charge. If you can get 10 or more people who have watched a trigger orientated therapy module together, then we can arrange a date and time to suit your time zone. So without further ado from me, let's get started.
Hi, Andy. Good afternoon. I'm Trevor. I live in the UK and I work with individuals myself and organisational systems.
Thank you. And you've just come back from a holiday and to quite a sunny place, by the way.
I have been in the south of France, so I've got a bit of a tan. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it would take me about it would take me about 2,000 years to get a tan like that, I think.
It was fairly hard work, but it was very, very hot weather.
Well, I'm glad you put your back into it anyway.
Absolutely. So talking about, so we're going to talk today about your use of the Rainbow Map.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And so my first question is, how do you introduce it?
I will generally, in the first few sessions, I'm obviously finding out about what's going on, what are their best hopes. And then maybe there'll be individual sessions if it's a couple, maybe not sometimes. But I'm trying to understand really the nature of the discomfort they're experiencing. And if it sounds like that parts of their lives are spent in the yellow or the blue or the red or the dark purple of the Rainbow Map, then I'll start to think that maybe it's going to be appropriate to use.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So what do you do at that point? I mean, you've got it going on in your mind that you're seeing the colours because, of course, you know the map. That things are starting to emerge from the conversation. How do you actually bring it into the conversation?
Yeah, I suppose again it depends. I mean, increasingly, I introduce it quite early. Other people may see that as well, maybe you should just wait around and really make sure the therapeutic relationship is really there. Therapists, that clients that they, and this could be me. So these are but they want to get going on something. And the rainbow map is very much something that looks a bit structured, but is very empty. So I find I can introduce it fairly early on in the work, and in a way it's a way for clients to share even more about themselves.
Yes. So that would be one of the things you would say. This is a way for you to share more about yourself.
Yeah, and so that they would, but in terms of what they want to share, because there's no coercion or anything the way I'm working. But prior to that, I will have introduced them to the reflective mind and reactive brain body model.
Okay.
Every time. No, in my practice, no one will ever see the rainbow map. I mean, other practices, you'll see other therapists on the website who use the rainbow map, and they won't be so explicitly using the reflective mind and reactive brain body model. I mean, many are, but many don't. They have their own way, very special way of introducing it. I mean, if you well, I won't pick out particularly, but if you go through the different therapists, you'll see different styles. But my style is, I mean, even the first session, even a telephone call, I'll be using the language of, so what you're saying is your reactive body or reactive brain sort of really triggered.
Yes.
And then, maybe you felt something, your reflective mind, that bit allows you to, and they'll be going, yeah, that's sort of like that. So I'll be lacing the conversation with some of that language already.
Right. Yeah. So language is already happening.
And then the reason I'm doing that now, if I was lacing it with complex language or technical language, in my view, I'd be asking them to sort of come possibly too far to my own terrain. Yes. I'm forcing them to express themselves using my language. But most of the work I'm doing, reflective mind and reactive brain, is everyday language.
Yes.
But what I find is it allows clients. It gives them an avenue through which to express themselves, because a lot of people struggle around these areas when they first contact a therapist. It's often the first time they've ever done this.
Yes.
And so just generating a little bit of common ground around language can really help them express themselves.
I'm also hearing that you hang it on things that have been said in the room, which in your conversations as well. So
and with new clients, it might be in the first telephone call. They're calling, we're having a quick chat to see whether there's some prospect of working together. And so they will be aware of a reflective mind reactive brain body model. And increasingly in my practice, I'm increasingly thinking about client resilience once our work is finished.
Right.
So I'm thinking about that from the get-go. So the way I'm working with clients is very much so that they're developing the expertise and knowledge and awareness. So when our work finishes,
they can carry on.
And what life does the inevitable and goes a bit pear-shaped, as it does for all of us in one way or another, they've got to increase levels of resilience. They can notice themselves. They've got resources and tools that they then get, rather than saying, right, I've got to go back to Andrew now. I mean, I don't know. With all my clients, there's a transitional period. I mean, I typically very rarely work with clients where we do a short section, so 5 or 6 or 7, 8 sessions, and then that's it. Because I work in a way that we may work fairly regularly, like every week, a couple of weeks, but fairly quickly, and as quickly as possible. That will extend out to a couple of weeks, to a month, to 2 months. And then as we're going into that work, it's more about, as they come back, what went well, what didn't go well, and they've got the language and some concepts that we can look at the areas that went well and didn't go so well and just sit around it in partnership and say, that worked and that didn't work. And the rainbow map and the reflective mind reactive brain body model, right from the get-go, is trying to work in line with that.
Yes, and the resilience thing sounds incredibly high value for
yeah, and I'm not unique in that. Most psychotherapists or whatever tuning into this would just say, yeah. Well, they may talk about it in a slightly different way. So what causes you to introduce it for me is very much is in my view, most people I'm working with are triggering and experiencing levels of discomfort that are either moderately at a moderate level, but for lengths of time that are wearing and they're sort of grinding them down. Or they're experiencing spikes of discomfort, either fight, flight, hide, freeze, play dead, that are so intense that it's causing them real serious problems and maybe other people around them. So my thinking is the sooner I can help them become aware of the reflective mind, reactive brain, reactive body system, that will then generate, in a way, an addition to the alphabet, an addition to the language we've got to work with. I mean, it is a delicate balance. I mean, you'll hear one of the reflectors who works with people who are at suicide risk.
Right.
And so, there's two psychotherapists who will talk about that in the reflection sessions so far. And I mean, quite rightly, they'll be thinking, well, is this the sort of tool I will introduce early on with someone where there's real volatile? I mean, they'll go right up into the red or right into the purple. And when you're up into those, you're completely compulsive. Yes. So let's just hold back for a little while and we'll just sense this a little bit more before we introduce the rainbow map. And I would work it that way as well. And then how do I introduce it?
Yes.
I will typically, with couples, talk about it the session before we're going to use it.
Okay. So what will you say? What will you say? Sorry, I interrupted you. What will you say?
Yeah, well, I would say, that reflective mind, reactive brain body. Well, next week we're going to, this thing called the rainbow map. I'm going to introduce that, and I might, online, I might quickly show them an image of it and just say quickly, this is how it works. These are the bands and all the rest of it. And the idea of this is for you to get it much clearer so you can notice it, because for a period of weeks now. So with my clients, I generally work with them to develop a level of expertise in noticing themselves.
Yes.
So so noticing themselves trigger that. I mean, I'm not, interestingly, some people are into brief therapy, so maybe it's not for them. But I'm trying to help my clients become more expert in noticing themselves in a more discreet way. What's happening to my emotions and what's happening to my styles of thought, typical thoughts, sensations, behaviors. What's my trigger cycle like? So I'm trying to get them to become aware of that before we start really working on the resources that are going to start to really change things.
Yeah. So there's a sort of laying of the ground.
It's putting foundations in.
Yes.
I mean, in my early part, where before I started developing the rainbow map, I was starting to get a bit uneasy because it so much of it seemed to be, spending time with Andrew Thomas, classically trained, and then things stabilized, people felt a bit better about themselves. Could you name something you could do for each other? What don't you understand about yourself? What don't you, that sort of thing. I mean, it's all got merit. They're all resources. But prior to that type of stuff, what I'm trying to do is get foundations in.
Yes.
So they got then something to build on.
Yes.
Because what I think happens a lot of the time is people go to therapy, they stabilize, and then they go out into the real world, but the way they trigger is still there.
Sure.
And the potency of that triggering is still there. So unless you're sort of doing the groundwork to help them become aware of that and maybe build resources that are reconditioning that, then for all the best will in the world, they may know something they can do to help the other, and vice versa, or
Yes.
what they can do in their own lives. Life comes along and will re-trigger them.
Sure. Sure.
And if they can't notice that, it will just go out the window and they'll be back to where they are,
So,
in my view.
So that's going back to the resilience thing again, in a sense, to sustainability of the work. So when you have introduced it, give me some examples of the sort of reactions that you have received when you've introduced it.
I think the reactions are always interested, really.
Okay, so the positive.
I mean, I wish I could be a bit more balanced. Like some people might say, "Oh no, just put that away." I suppose people tuning into this will have to realise that, hey, this is the bloke that developed it. So maybe they can see that my lower lip is quivering if they say anything nasty about it. I'd hope not. But I think so much in therapy and all the rest of it from a psychotherapist is how comfortable you are as well with it.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're sort of introducing it, well, maybe this will work, maybe it won't, and all the rest of it. I mean, I introduced it, well, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it in a way that hopefully is collaborative. There's some groundwork laid to it, and I'm just saying, hey, let's give it a go. But I'm not doing it in a really uncertain way. So
no, I think the groundwork's really important, because I think you're basing it on what has already been said and what they've already brought to the table. And it sounds like you're quite diligent with that. So you're tying it in to things that have already been discussed.
Whether it's individual clients or whether it's couple clients or whatever, I'm trying to introduce them to their inner system. That interplay of those three main capacities that in my view humans have.
Yeah.
So they can get to notice them, and then notice them in a discrete way, and then have access into them, rather than just being sort of just one amorphous unit that has emotions, generates thoughts, and behaves. And all of those are just, there's no sort of sense of discreteness around them.
Yes.
Because then it's very hard to access stuff. So if you're doing development work, so what would be the one thing you could help the other person? You're really just asking that overall unit, that overall system to respond to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why later on, if that system triggers, it's unlikely to activate that resource because it's not discrete.
Yes.
So the general reaction is, to give it a go, because people, again, people are coming to therapy to experience, learn about themselves, experience change. I mean, there's different proportions and elements, and people obviously have different sensitivities. You know that some people will be very sensitive about dealing with their past, and it will take a little bit of time to develop the type of relationship where they'll trust. But I find most people who come to therapy want to trust their psychotherapist.
Yes.
That they're coming to therapy because maybe in all other parts of their lives they're not trusting.
Yes.
So they're coming to psychotherapists. So initially it's not all universal, but in my experience, most people are gifting you some trust at the start, and it's up to our ethics and the way we work not to let them down on that front.
Yes, absolutely.
So the reaction is generally interest, something, a bit of reticence. You can work with clients who say, "Oh, okay, I'll give it a go." They do it and then say, "But now I want to talk about the arguments we were having.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the meat of this." or the conflict, if they're individuals, this is the conflict I'm having, and I want to talk to you to get my mind right, so I know if I'm on the correct or not. This is the way you should deal with this situation. Or couples, it's not uncommon to say, okay, we've done that, I've got, and so after the first goes, so with couples, sometimes I'll take them both through at the same time. I mean, if people, there's all sorts of issues I'll be thinking about whether I'll do it at the same time. But my preference is to take one through it one session and the next one through at the other session.
So does the other one observe?
Yes. But they also may be reflecting on their own rainbow map. So they'll before that session, so I'll have introduced it at one session. I only work online now. So they will have then received PDFs of the rainbow map, and now they're receiving links to the introduction to the rainbow map.
Yeah.
And with the website coming on, they'll be sent links to sort of the introduction modules, the short introduction or the longer interactive. So they'll develop even more if they want to watch that. Most people do want to get sort of involved in their own therapy.
Sure.
They want to be to learn, and that's my experience anyway. And as long as it's not like a lesson, it's interactive and feels interesting and participative,
relevant.
And so between those two sessions, they will have got PDFs of the rainbow map themselves, and they will have got, I used to just send other information in PDF form that would introduce it. But now with the resources that are available on the website, I'll send them links to those resources. So I'm really hoping that will really add to it.
Yes, and you're backing for different learning styles as well. So
and they can really tap into it, and then see the reflection sessions and just see how much better other therapists are than me, and maybe because if you see, they're really some wonderful people using this tool. I've learned so much from them. Anyway, I digress. So the reaction is positive and interested. I'll introduce at once. I'll talk about it one session, and then maybe bring it in the next. Couples, I will sometimes do it both at the same session. I mean, to give you an example, it's not the total list of considerations I'll have, but if there's a real power dynamic going on, and which means that if one does it before the other, that may play in an unhelpful way into our relationship. So one of them thinks, okay, here we go. This is a way of getting me to do it because I'm always doing that, or I've got to spill, or I'm the patient here. And so, or if there's a power dynamic, so that one of them will say, "Why didn't you go for?" If I'd be uncomfortable if one of them was then pushing the other to go first. That wouldn't be therapeutically very helpful. So if I'm already starting to pick up, I mean, there are other factors as well, but that would be a factor. That might say, let's just do this in one session. But overall, my preference is one session, the next session, and often I'll just randomly, I'll toss a coin, or who was born nearest to the North Pole, which I might not know, or something like that, and then so something quite random, and then the idea is you get what you get is they listen into the other going through it. In couple work. And for often they're riveted. They invariably, they're not writing much stuff on their own copy about themselves. They're actually listening to their partner go through types of emotion, because they'll be reflecting on an issue that they can remember that's characteristic of the issues they're facing in the relationship. They may not have to be explicit about what that is, because that might cause issues in the relationship, in the session and afterwards, but they're reflecting on that and thinking about what the emotions were like during that, and what their thoughts and styles of thinking and sensations were like.
Yes.
And for the other person in couple work, for them, quite often, I think in couple work and couples or families, the inner world of the people is opaque.
Yes.
Why the hell are they behaving like that? What do they say? Why? What's going on? I just don't understand them.
Yeah. So seeing that session unfold has value for the other person.
Yeah, they're actually, it goes against some of the classic tenets you might get trained in couple therapy as a therapist. Like in every session, you have to balance it, the amount of time each partner, airtime they have.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe going a little bit against that convention, because for a whole session, one person is sort of just tuning in.
Yes.
I mean, quite a lot of people will write stuff about themselves, but they will typically be tuning in while the other person is working with the rainbow map and me.
Yes. So my next question is about what do they get from it? And you've answered that in part when you're talking about the couple's observation piece. But what else do you think they get out of it as individuals and as couples? And what do they say as well?
The types of things they're getting out of it, I mean, it has some therapeutic value in of itself, just the experience of going through understanding levels, starting to notice your system in that discrete way. Emotions are discrete from styles of thinking and typical thoughts, which are discrete from sensations, which are discrete from behaviors. Well, you could say behaviors are the integration of all of that.
Yes.
And so they get that discreteness, and that can be really valuable. And I think that's one of the reasons why therapists from all mainstream modalities are using it, because that opens up opportunities, whether you work in Gestalt or psychodynamic or systemic. I mean, my training is systemic and psychodynamic, but you could say that I'm laced. When I talk to a Gestalt therapist, I find myself nodding an awful lot as I hear them. Sure. EMDR therapists, CBT therapists, like lots of people who, once you get a number of years under your belt, you're starting to integrate. I mean, most psychotherapists I meet doing the Rainbow Map workshop are eclectic by nature. They may say these are my modalities, but they're generally looking around for tools and techniques that they'll just integrate or bolt in. So for me, that's what's happening with me as well.
I mean, it's a specific question and might not be that easy to answer, but do you remember any particular comment from any individual client around what they got out of it that was
well, I probably wouldn't relay that in this setting. I mean, I'll talk in generality here.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there is a session where one of the therapists does talk about a particular client, but that's only up on the website and the YouTube channel because that therapist has got specific permission. So I can talk about general themes.
Yes, that's what I mean.
So the general themes is sort of like if you quite often the shock at the cost of triggering up and how long people spend down. Because remember, we do the trigger cycle column.
Yes,
and that's a very frequent thing. Like it was only hot for 20 minutes, but I'm down in the dumps for 3 days, and I never really saw it quite as clearly as that.
Yes.
So God, that's a cost, and I never really saw it like that, or I never really noticed how my jaw got tight like that. That's really quite interesting. Or so you get lots of comments about, oh yeah, I didn't see it like that, or I didn't see that when that happens, this is what happens to me.
Yes.
Or and then coming on to the trigger cycle as well. So and then you get lots of comments like, yeah, I can see how I really just want to say this. When I trigger up, everything in me, it just wants to get that out.
Yes.
And now I can see how that's sort of automatic. I'm just being compelled to say that. So So you get sort of comments like, like, again, aligned with, I'm starting to notice myself more.
Yes.
You know, because people who come to therapy, or most people who come to psychotherapy who then encounter the rainbow map, unless they've done quite a lot of personal development, then they will have never been asked to think or look at themselves like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in a discreet way.
Yes.
So it draws out quite a lot of comments about how much, like, oh yeah, I noticed myself doing that, and quite a lot of people also comment about, if there's individual work, how they notice other people behaving now. They're thinking about that.
Yeah.
And another thing that comes out very confident, you'll hear virtually all the other reflection people, they'll start using colours to talk about how they are.
The shorthand sort of thing.
Yeah, I was green, or I was green like this, and then I went yellow.
Yeah.
Do you know, I think I was the lower end of red that time.
Yeah. So they start
And
talking in those terms.
and behind the scenes, a big thing I'm trying to help them see is they've shown immense courage and accountability for their behavior, coming to therapy or getting self, but they've not, until you're aware of your system and how automatic it is. You can't really be, in some ways you weren't responsible how that got trained into you.
Yes. Yes.
And that can be very releasing. So like, like, I know I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have behaved like that, I shouldn't have chucked that across the room, whatever. But if you start to see how automatic you are at times, once you go past the yellow and into the lower orange, or past the blue, and you're largely automatic, and evolution basically is the major dominant force in how you're behaving. The evolved system, it's gone into survival mode, is largely in control. Not that lovely human being, that reflective, creative human being that we typically are in the green band. People you're interacting with who are in the green band, most of us like them. They're okay, they're chatty, they're funny. But once we get beyond those limits, the upper end of the yellow and the lower end of that blue area, we're on automatic. And if you start to realize that about ourselves, it's not a massive step to realize that about other people.
Yeah. Those are some good examples. Yeah. So talking about you as a therapist, rather than as the creator of this, what do you experience when you work with the tool with clients?
I find the experience profoundly different with every client, and profoundly different for me, and it causes me to think about all sorts of different things. I don't think I've ever done a rainbow map session that I thought, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. Oh, I know what. Yeah, no, let's just move on with this. It's just so interesting, and I'm reflecting as well, because I'm always, another thing I'm saying to clients, look, the way I'm working with you is to load us up with a bit of common language and some awareness, and this is all loading so we can all be creative.
Yeah.
So all of this is loading I'm introducing them to the concept of hypothesizing, but holding it very lightly.
Yes.
Because I'm going to have ideas. I might say stuff and share ideas and views, but you must never see that as Andrew saying this is the way it is.
Yeah.
It's just me thinking, oh, well, that's an idea. And I'm encouraging you to engage in that creative process yourself. So, I mean, more specifically, if you want, and I've commented on this in a few others, is around 2016, 17, doing the rainbow map, I noticed I often didn't populate the lower depressed areas with clients. We did it, but my inclination was to be a bit uneasy and let's move on. Okay, we know you get depressed, and we've put a bit of stuff in there. Well, let's get on to maybe the trigger cycle, or that's we're developing resources. Maybe I just wanted to maybe move through that, and the penny dropped that because I generally don't experience depression, but I learned a lot about depression, um, developing the rainbow map, reading the books I read, but by like Black Rainbow by Curtis. I can't remember her first name. I think it's Curtis. About her incredible, eviscerating account of her depressions over a long period of time. And so depression does frighten me. I can remember the first time I ever came across depression was in A-level maths at my school. And one of the chaps I used to sit next to, he had depression, and what was it, Churchill called it the black dog or something like that. Yeah. That dreadful, his whole personality changed. So it did frighten me. And so I've learned to be maybe a little bit more aware of my own unease when I'm working in that area, not let that get into the therapeutic relationship and how I'm working with the client.
Or have you speed through it as you described?
Yeah. So I'm looking out for myself, not putting too much of my stuff into that part of it,
Makes a lot of sense.
So and every time I do it, it's driving into me. I mean, I can still trigger and get angry at stuff, but hopefully, it's. I mean, I'm sure there are situations that could drive me red and dark purple. I mean, as I say to my clients, that and especially couple clients, so many couple clients think somehow they failed, or they how did this ever happen to us?
Yeah,
because I've never met a couple client, for instance, who when they first met didn't actually quite like each other and actually wanted to get into bed with each other and have a great time with each other, and thought the world of each other. And then how did we get here talking to this, this pretty tired looking bloke, and I try to, what I say is that it's open for all of us to be there. No matter how long your relationship, no matter how strong you think it is, there's a sequence of events that can unpick us all and activate our survival systems and start to harm and weaken our attachment systems.
Yes.
So our attachment with our partner becomes less strong and or less predictable. I mean, some people who tune in might have heard this. I talk about the local news when they introduced Bert and Edna.
Yeah.
And Bert and Edna have been together for 73 years. and they interview them and they say, well, Edna, what's the secret? And well, we walk the dog every day, or we do this every day, and or healthy diet or whatever. And the interviewer, the local news person, oh God, well that's real food for thought. Maybe this is the recipe for a long. No. The reason why Bert and Edna have been together for 72 years is they haven't encountered a sequence of events that could have unpicked them. Some people are more resistant than others. That's a big conversation because there's genetics and the random interaction of our genetics and the environment. I mean, there's no, the data's in. We each have a greater or less propensity to anxiety and depression, and our genetics has a role in that. The book Blueprint by Robert Plomin is a great book to read on that, in my view. But all of us, no matter how, all of us can be unpicked in one way or another by events.
So before we close, any other reflections that you think might be really be of interest to people that want to engage or tune into the module? Anything you haven't mentioned that you'd like to share?
I suppose one of the things that's come out in the last few years is what I've learned so much from the people who've come on the workshop that's transferred onto the website their questions, reflections, and encouragement has been absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't be here talking to you and doing this if loads of people haven't been encouraging. And then there's been a certain group who I didn't know before, but I know now, and they know who they are, and they've been so supportive and encouraging for me, because I mean, it was quite frightening for me to share something that I thought was being useful in my own practice more publicly.
Yes.
You know, the dyslexic boy who was at the bottom of the class, at the back, you know, not wanting to be noticed, sharing something that in a way was going to get graded by other people, especially other psychotherapists. So I can only thank the hundreds of psychotherapists who've, you know, graded me either very leniently or or given me legitimately positive grades. But so that's been wonderful. I feel I feel a bit uneasy about the website going so public now with that, but I've learned so much. Like the green band. You know, what is the green band? I mean, I just used to think, well, it's just a green band, but I do so much more with it now. Clients who've had very abusive backgrounds, the green band is so useful in my view, and other therapists, because I learned it from other therapists, to help them actually start to say, this is what it means to me to be okay. This is the type of behavior I should expect from others. Why? Not because there's some authoritative body in the world that says this is the type of behavior you should expect person X. No, because in my view, because I'm a worthy person, I have value. And I go back, I think the Rainbow Map in my work has been a really great tool to help people value themselves more, to see themselves as entities of worth. They're discreet and they can notice themselves. And I've never thought of it like that before, but maybe when you start to actually discreetly notice yourself, you're starting to, hey, hold on, I really do exist.
Yes.
But and I'm not saying it's just overnight. And obviously there are clients who it's been wonderful to see how they work with the Rainbow Map. And clients are always putting trust in you. And so that's been a great experience.
Yes.
As well.
It's a lot back.
It's incredibly rewarding. I mean, doing the Rainbow Map and doing this other thing, I've done nothing that comes professionally that's come within a country mile.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a bit of feedback the other day from a therapist who was working with a client who had survived suicide, and they provided and he was kind enough to share with me the actual feedback on the working with the Rainbow and what it meant to them in terms of the lower propensity to ever commit suicide again. And the reward is just immense.
Yes, impossible to measure. Yeah,
that I developed something in my little desk here, or because there's thousands of hours that have gone into this.
Yeah,
and so and my lovely wife Rosie has had to be without my company for extended periods of time, and you'd obviously have to talk to her about that hardship and all the rest of it.
How terrible it was for her. Yeah.
Well, I actually have to phone her to let me out of this room. You see. So
any other reflections then before we close?
No, I mean, there's loads. I've tried. There are loads about using it and how to use it and all the rest of it. But I try to keep these sessions to a sensible length. So, but no, thank you for asking the questions and doing it in so I thought obviously that it would it would go like that. So Trevor, I'm really, really appreciative of you
Good to hear the
spending
whole story.
time listening to me whittle on, So thank you very much.
Thank you for asking me to do it.
If this module and other modules have been interesting and useful for you, perhaps I could ask you to share a link to the website with friends and colleagues who might also benefit from this free resource. Maybe you could also put a link out on any social media you use. That would be very helpful. For those of you watching this for your ongoing training, please remember you can go back to the launch page for this module and request a training certificate free of charge. You can also see a list of related modules on the website should you wish to know more about the Rainbow Map, other tools and the concepts on which they're based. If you and 10 or more friends, colleagues want to dig deeper into any aspect of this or other modules on the website, then you can book a free Zoom-based question, answer and reflection session to suit your time zone. Thank you very much for spending time with me and us today.